What's up, everyone? This is Sarah G, and it is GenZ-Gab, episode 15. Let's get into it. I just was away on vacation, a big family vacation, and I feel so much more re-energized, which I think a lot of people do feel. So that's good. I also got to see some family members that I haven't seen in a while, so that's always fun. And yeah, I don't have a lot to talk about except for just how funny it is, again, to talk about the whole Gen Z versus millennial thing within even my own family. So let's get into it. All right, so moving quickly to the Monday mood, because I know we start off with it most days, so that's why we're going for it. And I have actually attempted to record this like 5 times. Why, you ask? Because of my stupid computer, thinking that it's going to be overflowed, even though I'm using my backup hard drive, like not the specific one to the Mac. So that's always fun, right? I, though, wanted to say Monday mood is the Greta Thunberg, who is constantly trying to make the world a better place and environment, as well as, funny thing, Elaine Hendricks, that was Meredith Blake from The Parent Trap. The reason that I'm especially highlighting her is because her and Lisa Ann Walter are actually really good friends. They've been best friends since that movie, and even though I have followed them both like separately, not as much, Elaine, but her name is Elaine for animals, and then the more that deep digging that I do, the more I'm like, I never believed she was like an evil or malicious person, obviously, but as many Gen Z kids that grow up watching, a lot of us are 24, like the same age as The Parent Trap, so we never really know. And yeah, she played that evil stepmother, Cruella, very well, but I love how she actually plays on it way more, and it's just, I remember 4 years ago, the 20th anniversary, there was just something funny, and that's when I really started to notice more about her. And yeah, she does a lot for Humane Society, LGBTQIA plus community, as well as the climate activism. She's all over the place. Like, she is so well-rounded in her advocacy. And I'm not saying, because again, we all, like, again, one cause is perfect. It's to fight the most for. I just wanted to let know everything because of that situation, because I think it's kind of interesting and you don't really see that much. But she was also on like a bunch of other things like Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, that old show that was on FX. I didn't actually watch it because I probably wasn't allowed to, and had Liz Gillies on it after her whole thing, Victorious and Dynasty, and then now that one's on Dynasty. It's all like kind of full circle if you think about it. But now I've been following Chessie, Lisa Ann Walter, because she's on my new favorite show, Abbott Elementary. Everyone loves Miss Schmagetti, and it's just so interesting to see all these different like things that people go, because it's social media, and yeah, a little bit. But it's just funny, that's all. I don't really know what else to say, but it's kind of one of those, like, oh my gosh, it's not my childhood ruined, but it's like my childhood goes, wow, I didn't expect that. But then you think about, again, it's acting. I'm looking to be in acting. I'm a content creator. I try to do communication stuff, and then it's like, you all know what goes into some of that artistry, so why are you not surprised? And I guess it's surprising that sometimes villains are the nicest people, but then again, you also know that nicest people turn into villains, like Maleficent from the movie. Like, she did get her wings cut off, and that's why she hated the king and started to hate Sleeping Beauty, Briar Rose, all those things, which I know is really random that I'm talking about. But that's kind of my takeaway from it all, is that, as well as the fact that just kind of funny how, you know, people can say they've worked hard and long, but it's good to see that these people are still constantly working. Yes, we remember them from certain iconic roles, but they know more than that. And I think that just shows that, like, even if you're kind of like struggling in between years, but you're always going back, and forth and doing what you love. So there's that. And I kind of wanted to touch on that because that's like conversations I had within my family when they started to ask me, what do you want to do with your life? Like, okay, bold question because I don't really know. And I know people are just curious, but it's kind of like I'm doing a lot of freelancing, self-employed stuff. And it's great until it's just kind of like you're doing what you got to do and you're trying to make money, march on survival. And I think that gets a little tricky when you really think about it because it's like, okay, you guys don't get it because of the other generation. But the whole Gen Z millennial thing that I'm going to touch on a lot today is because, again, I'm Gen Z. Even though I'm in the beginning, I'm Gen Z. And talking to my millennial cousins and family member / then like the Gen X and then Boomer, silent generation, whatever. I don't really know where some of my family members line up, honestly. It's just so funny because, again, I had an incident with like my oldest cousin, not incident, but he was going about, him and his wife were talking about how many different songs I could name by various bands, and I could name 3 like at least that that got them the solid points. And I actually love Good Charlotte. I don't know why I was blanking on the beach when we were trying to figure out things because I actually hadn't been drinking. Like I only had 1 drink. Like I really didn't drink as much as usual, maybe because of other things, but it's so funny. What I'm trying to say is that I know Lifestyle Very Famous, the anthem, and I Don't Want to Be in Love, and there's so many more, but those are ones. And yeah, he's like, name more than 3. Well, again, I did Fall Out Boy pretty well. I also did Thanks for the Memories, Phoenix, and Down Down or Sugar Go Down Swinging. If I get in trouble for that one, sorry, but that came out when I was like 4, so. And then I talked about Avril Lavigne, and they're like, she's such a sellout now. But I'm like, in a way, yes and no. But I liked it because it was like the first, like, kind of more badass girl, like, image. And Skater Boy just really shaped my personality. Not that parts of stuff, but like just like the whole like not edge, but just not being traditional. Maybe that's it. So that's cool. But then they just love to laugh because so many of us, they say, oh my god, you guys were 11 and saying, I'm going through my emo phase. And at the same time, I didn't quite get that. And I used to pretend that I knew, like I pretended I knew a lot of stuff that I actually didn't. Holy shit, that was not good. But it was funny. But it's all interesting as more time goes on to figure out where we really stand, I guess. But yeah, it's just, oh my gosh, like you realize I'm like, oh, I'm 7 years younger, so of course, even if I've listened to some of the stuff, I'm still a baby in your eyes. Even though I've been feeling more like an equal lately, I know that's not true. Also, it's not true because they're married, have a kid, all that fun stuff. Like my second oldest that actually visited of my cousins because it was our grandparents' 60th anniversary at our little family retreat. I'm not going to get too much into that except for the fact just that when my cousin came, I didn't believe my dad that he was there because, you never want to get your hopes up, especially with stuff happening in the past couple of years. But it was really good to see him. But it is, again, weird because it's like, to them, like, I'm still kind of like that baby annoying cousin sister thing. And I've also joked I'm the awkward middle child. I'm the awkward middle child in my own family as well as the awkward middle child of the grandkids. There are 13 of us. Yeah, I'm smack dab in the middle. So, but it's all good, right? Like, we don't need it too much, and it's just super funny. But yeah, just thinking about that, like how they're more adults now. And I'm like, well, they were always bigger adults or such as well. But also, does anybody else also run into that thing with the whole family nickname? Like we have, like, my brother and him, the two cousins that are a year and a half, like younger than him. But yeah. Or older. One's older, one's younger. One's like 8 months older, one's like a year younger plus. But yeah. So it's super funny, right? Or just a year younger. I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that. But I'm not good with math really right now. And again, I could do it, but I don't really feel like it at the moment. That being said, it's just so funny because then they were the little guys. And then we have 3 younger girls in our group. Or 4. So yeah, it's just that. And then the little... And then it's like me and my cousin, who's a year ahead of me, we're just the girls. So it's just all odd how it's still, but to this day, it's like they're always going to be, even if they're in their 20s or, under 20, who knows. But it's just funny how all those things stick. Even especially the little boys of my family, they are all taller than the older, bigger boys. But that's just how it works, and that's just life. So it's just really funny. And I will say that when I was talking to my cousin, he has been in and out of, the service. And he now is completely out. He's doing this transitional mode where he's trying to find a job. And the funny thing is that I was talking to him about the same thing. And then 7 years ago when him and his fiance, or they might have just been dating at that time. I don't know. They got engaged around that time. But they were stationed in South Carolina, and I went to visit because I was visiting my brother as a whole family, and we did a bunch of stuff for my brother's A push, which, by the way, just letting you all know, which I bet you already kind of know. If you're going to North or South Carolina in June, just know you're going to be hot, especially in Charleston, South Carolina. That was just not... In South Carolina, especially, we had to do, for my brother, because my mom thought a 2-hour horse ride would be great in this humid, hot weather, and just, walking through. I wanted to go to the pool or the beach. I was under the impression we were going to do that. We only had a day and a half, but no, we decided to do the other thing, and then she's like, oh, come on, let's have some fresh seafood. Okay, that's fine. But, again, we were spending 5 days... Because my brother was in North Carolina for work, and he interned with my uncle. And then my cousin was stationed in South Carolina, so then it was all trying to shove and fit this stuff together. But I straight up am looking at my mom I have to sit by my dad, who hates the humidity. And we were talking to the people who were running the horse, and they were taking the temperature, and they were just about done. But my dad was spilling lemonade all over him because he was that hot, and he never intended. He thought it was just going to be a 2-minute ride, and then it turned into an hour and a half or 2 hour. And he said it would have been fine if it wasn't so humid. Here's the thing. North Carolina and down is the South. We should have... He's a geography buff. I'm sorry, I'm not, ADHD, dyslexia, but even I knew it's going to probably be hotter than expected, right? So, but getting back to the story, aside from that, because maybe you didn't need all that, but there you go. His now wife, was looking for a job in marketing communication, stuff similar to me. But, I'm looking for a job that fits. She was looking for a job that fits. And then suddenly I understood fully what she meant by it's harder to find one. And especially in those different areas, depending on what you have to do and where they lived. So it's kind of safety as well. And that was back when people weren't doing as remote of work. So it was just very interesting because at the time I go, oh, I didn't think, because again, I just had graduated high school at that time. I wasn't thinking much, obviously, of how hard it would be. And then I graduated a semester early, and now I'm still kind of in that freelance world, which is all fine and good. But you kind of start to realize, oh my gosh, they didn't have it figured out. I don't have it figured out, but they seem more put together, both him, my oldest cousin, because they both were married by the time they were 25. But again, that's not as normal anymore. And they're just relax, it's fine. But the thing is, they look so together, adults, and I'm just here well, which is way more normal. But again, I'm living at home, trying to figure out my next step, trying to do everything, and yeah. I will say, though, that my oldest cousin, he's a teacher, and you know what? I have a lot of appreciation for him because, again, teaching is definitely something that not everyone is equipped to do or has the patience. So it was fun that way. But yeah. So, but to me, it's like thinking you have it figured out, but they said they still didn't feel like they had things figured out at 25. So that kind of reassures me in a different way, but I'm also looking at them like, and then it's also the whole that picture perfect moment that doesn't actually maybe exist as much. But it's so odd because even like my grandparents were talking about the whole marriage thing and like that they can't believe they got married at 22 and 23. And yeah, they've been married for 60 years. Don't know how it happened. I mean, I do know how it happened, but you know what I mean. Like, it's a blessing, I guess, for a lot of reasons. They're saying, like, how much when we talk about things, they're like, we were crazy for having kids at 23, 24. And they go, we were thinking we were so old having your uncle, my youngest uncle, at 34 and 35 or 33 and 34. I don't know, something like that. And I'm looking at them like, okay, well, I feel like because of what kind of some things, like you say, unfortunately or unintentionally or realistically to young girls especially, but you guys saying that we're still young, like this is like the complete opposite. Have you ever noticed how family members go a complete opposite 360, 180 after they like turn 70? Like, or 80? It's like, what the hell just happened? Who are you? I don't even know you anymore. Oh, that was really funny and interesting in a whole different way, obviously. But the priest was kind of funny, and yeah, we had to go because we're Irish Catholic. We had to go to that little blessing. It was 45 minutes. I let it. It was interesting. But it was funny because again, my cousin, his baby, his 1-year-old, was there, and he played it up. He said, "New life." You know, technically, her screaming is because of you guys, because it all started with her. And it's kind of funny to think about that, but it's true that then it's like 3-4 generations here and there, and just how we're celebrating, and so on and so forth. And no matter what problems or hiccups along the way, it just shows how strong you are. So, yeah. But thinking about that too, my grandpa and I had this talk because he's in sales, and he's like, oh, you'd be good at sales, except for now that he's even agreed there's so many multi-marketing schemes like the MLMs. He doesn't think he could do them because again, he just sold like scanners for grocery stores, a little price tag, and he did great, but he's just like, there's so much to do. And I said, exactly, like I can't tell you anymore what I want. Sales is a good idea, but when it comes down to it, there's so many of those multi-marketing schemes, multi-level marketing schemes. Wow, I cannot say it enough, but where it's kind of hard to know exactly what you're getting into, and then you can make money through TikTok, Survey Junkie, all those things. But it's like, oh, I don't have a real job in their books, but not really. And then, yeah, my grandma's a teacher for a private school, so, but that's separate. But that's like, to me, looking at them, I'm like, you had your life more figured out in your 20s, but that's just how it was. But now it's kind of like, yeah, but all the people that they knew, or whatever, you think about that as well, that the reason they say they're more blessed is because even if they wanted some of their friends to come, not all of them could come to a 60th, so that's why they wanted all the grandkids pretty much. And they got that, surprisingly. So it's all good. But it's just had a lot of self-reflection, and I think I'm going to end on some note of that for the whole thing of this specific topic, that just, you know, it's funny how much stuff changes, but in a weird way, how you always wind back kind of back home, and people go, that's kind of the stereotypical elements of life, and that's true. And you want to create like animosity also between the trial and hardships, because I do want people to realize one thing is that this, what I just described to you, and I, again, because of boundaries and issue, family, all those fun things, I'm saying because we all know, because we've all seen it in the media, but no one's family is perfect. I just want to emphasize, because what I just said, yes, and there are a lot of stories that might sway, or could be even considered slightly funny, but they're just not a place where we should talk about. But I just want to say it because when I kind of mentioned picture perfectness, I'm not really into that whole everything needs to be perfect and everything needs to be controlled and looked at. So I just wanted to emphasize that for a second for everyone, just to realize that that's kind of where we are. Moving on from that, I do want to talk quickly about dreams or dream job, because that also oddly ties into a little bit of the week that I had with my own family. But even when I start to think about it in myself, like my dream is completely like doing this content creation, all that, making a lot of it. But if I had to choose like a real 9 to 5 or a real like type of job, which people are like, what is real? But I think it would be running social media platforms and being able to make money off of that more. And people go, what do you mean, Megan? Well, because I've done a lot of situational things where I've done some of that work, run social media accounts, make campaigns, all that, not get paid. And I think, again, a lot of people in the communication, social media marketing world run into that. So I do want to emphasize that it's because not of laziness, it's because also people steal things, etc. And when you're explaining that to your family who's maybe more traditional, they get to open their eyes and see it. And I think that it's also what they're noticing most in their Gen Z grandkids and cousins, and it just shows the shortage. And then people are always like, no one. Again, it goes back into that stupidity of the Kardashians, which, by the way, Pete Davidson, I'm happy that he's not dating her anymore. I'm sad that he dated her. Yes, people are going to give me, like, why? Because I had a celeb crush on him. Okay, cool. But, I mean, it was hard. And he's already had some weird relationships with a lot of people, so that's not it. But I didn't want them together. Yes, they kind of look cute, but there's just a lot of things that didn't make sense about a lot of things in that situation, as well as, I'm also always dealing with, like, we joke about the quarter-life crisis, but let's sit down and realize one thing. Selena Gomez last month turned 30. The Sprouse twins turned 30 this week. My childhood is officially like where they seem so much older, wiser, and still kind of are, but I thought way differently, and now I'm thinking I'm turning 25 soon. What is going on? Again, Lindsay Lohan, like I mentioned, the Parent Trap, thank God everything's going well with her. She's got her new podcast, but even she's 37 now. And she's looking great, but all of that stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, suddenly I'm thinking I'm old. Not just talking to my cousins, but talking to my younger ones, etc. But telling them to watch, like, Sweet Life and Wizards of Waverly Place. Now, they have watched different TV and movies, but they were into Liv and Maddie. They're into, like, a lot of those, or the Fantastic Ladybug. So and Mouse. And then suddenly when I'm telling them to watch some of my shows, I'm like, it's old. And then even my mom answers, it's older. I'm like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. Where the hell did the time go? And suddenly I'm sitting there like, I don't know what to do. And that's why when people ask me, why are you doing so many reactions to these old shows? Because I don't have anything better to do with my life, because I do, but it's like, because I like them, and it brings me back to the joy I see within them doing their whole thing in life. Like, people don't understand that when you go back, and it might be an anxiety thing, it might be an ADHD thing, who really knows? What my biggest takeaway from it all is that it's just refreshing. And then there was also that thing about Hocus Pocus, and who was considered this kind of child that was a little more nervous, and that wasn't me. And I didn't watch Hocus Pocus till I was 22 again, because I kept getting scared of the thing. And honestly, every time I explained why I was scared, it's like the most valid reason. Kind of like Harry Potter. It's that they're always trying to kill kids or destroy kids. Like, do you not understand what's going on really here? It's the fact of the matter of, they lure the little girl into the forest in Salem. So, yeah, in the 1600s, and then Thackeray Bink, the cat, gets thrown around multiple times. But yeah, there's a lot of, it's funny and silly, but when you think about it, no wonder it's like I had fear. Billy Bones became amazing again. Like, I watched his scene even before then, and I always thought he was funny, but it was just like I think if people understood some of that stuff, and also following up with Harry Potter, again, I did not really start liking till 17, 18 because it always seemed like, why is this guy after a kid? And I know why, and I know why they were written in darker, but it's like some of those movies, you can make fun of people for being scared, but then there's sometimes a little bit of a logical thing, as well as you can see why I don't like horror films. And people go, you just need a more mature. Well, yes and no, but when people people go, you don't have to explain yourself. Well, but then I have to explain myself because then I get made fun of for how much I might not like this movie or whatever. And then it's like you have to have a valid point for everything, which the time and time again, it just gets so freaking stupid that you never really know how to explain it. And then people go, you talk too much, you don't need to listen more. And when you do that, it's still not enough. And those are just, again, some takeaways from what I'm learning going into my 25th year, because that's my November. And like where I had these strong independent girl characters, hilarious characters, as well as just even if they were troublemakers in all those good Disney shows like from the early 2000s, and they actually talked about things. They didn't reveal too much, but they actually got to a point where they were talking about real things, where instead of that stupid, like, stupid, like, I don't know what more to say, just stupid humor. And it was way more cleverly, comedically timed and just done more well. Like, the scripts were taking time, the acting was really on point, and again, I really would love a Wizards reboot. I love Only Murders in the Building, and yeah, for people being like, what, we need enough with these reboots. Yeah, but I wouldn't even say that I really want a reboot of Wizards. I would just want like a spin-off. Like, let's see what Justin and Alex can do as they're the most powerful wizards, basically. And the Russo family magic. Let's do side characters. Like I said last week, I'm just very passionate about this. And the more that I read up into things, I loved it. It was, again, one of the most perfectly casted shows. They made sure everyone was either Italian or Hispanic or both. Yes, Italian's white, but it was just kind of like one of those, they did it so well, and just the chemistry and the ways that people were interacting with each other is just phenomenal. And I kind of do wonder what Alex would be like in her 30s, because she used to be like, I'm resting up from my 30s, and then and sometimes she had her little Selena Gomez Southern twang, but she would be like drinking her milk and being like, look, I'm resting up from my 30s. So, yeah. That was from Marathon Helper, but when I rewatch it, I go, oh, this is such a good show, and same with iCarly, and just kind of where I would feel like I would want some of the characters that I related to so much growing up. But even True Jackson, VP, Hannah Montana, like all of them. It wasn't that I would want like a reboot, but I kind of want like a quick like update, like where are they now? I would want a lot more from Wizards, but you get the drill, you get my feeling drift. So my takeaways are, sometimes you feel older with certain people and family members, and sometimes you'll feel young. You'll never be the oldest or the youngest. Sometimes you will be in the room, but you know what you mean. It's a little contradictory, confusing, but I will see you guys next week. Let's gab soon. Remember to follow Patreon, website, and YouTube, as well as our social media accounts. Okay, bye guys.